One Christmas Eve by Langston Hughes. This was published in The Opportunity in December of 1933. One Christmas Eve. Standing over the hot stove cooking supper, the colored maid Arcy was very tired. Between meals today, she had cleaned the whole house for the white family she worked for, getting ready for Christmas tomorrow. Now her back ached and her head felt faint from sheer fatigue. Well, she would be off in a little while, if only the missus and her children would come on home for dinner. They were out shopping for more things for the tree, which stood all ready, tinsel hung and lovely in the living room, waiting for its candles to be lighted. Arcy wished she could afford a tree for Joe. He'd never had one yet, and it's nice to have such things when you're little. Joe was 5, going on 6. Arcy, looking at the roast in the white folks' oven, wondered how much she could afford to spend tonight on toys for Joe. She only got $7 a week, and 4 of that went for her room and the landlady's daily looking after Joe while Arcy was at work. Lord, it's more'n a notion raising a child, she thought. She looked at the clock at the kitchen table. After 7. What made white folks so inconsiderate, she wondered. Why didn't they come on here home to supper? They knew she wanted to get off before all the stores closed. She wouldn't have time to buy Joe nothing if they didn't hurry. And her landlady probably wanted to go out and shop too and not be bothered with little Joe. Doggone it, Arcy said to herself. If I just had my money, I might leave the supper on the stove for him. I just got to go get to the stoves before they close. But she hadn't been paid for the week yet. The missus had promised to pay her Christmas Eve, a day or so ahead of time. Arcy heard a door slam and talking and laughter in the front of the house. She went in and saw the missus and her children shaking snow off their coats. It's well for Christmas Eve, one of the kids said to Arcy. It's snowing like the deuce. And Mother came near driving through a stoplight, can hardly see for the snow. It's swell. Supper's ready, Arcy said. She was thinking how her shoes weren't very good for walking in the snow. It seemed like the white folks took as long as they could to eat that evening. While Arcy was washing dishes, the missus came out with her money. Arcy, the missus said, I'm so sorry, but would you mind if I just give you $5 tonight? The children have made me run short of change, buying presents and all. I'd like to have 7, Arcy said. I needs it. Well, I just haven't got 7, the missus said. I didn't know you'd want all your money before the end of the week anyhow. I just haven't got it to spare. Arcy took 5. Coming out of the hot kitchen, she wrapped up as well as she could and hurried by the house where she roomed to get little Joe. At least he could look at the Christmas trees in the windows downtown. The landlady, a big light yellow woman, was in a bad humor. She said to Arcy, I thought you was a-coming home early and get this child. I guess you know I want to go out too once in a while. Arcy didn't say anything, for if she had, she knew the landlady would probably throw it up to her, and she wasn't getting paid to look after a child both night and day. Come on, Joe, Arcy said to her son. Let us go in the street. I hears they got a Santa Claus downtown, Joe said, wriggling into his worn little coat. I want to see him. Don't know about that, his mother said, but hurry up, put your rubbers on. Stores will be closed directly. It was 6 or 8 blocks downtown. They trudged along through the falling snow, both of them a little cold, but the snow was pretty. The main street was hung with bright red and blue lights. In front of the city hall, there was a Christmas tree, but it didn't have no presents on it, only lights. In the store windows, there were lots of toys for sale. Joe kept saying, Mama, I want, but Mama kept walking ahead. It was nearly 10 when the stores were due to close, and Arcee wanted to get Joe some cheap gloves and something to keep him warm, as well as a toy or two. She thought she might come across a rummage sale where they had children's clothes, and in the 10-cent store she could get him some toys. "Ooh, look," little Joe kept saying and pointing at things in the windows. How warm and pretty the lights were, and the shops and the electric signs through the snow. It took Arcee more than $1 to get Joe's mittens and things he needed. In the A&P, Arcee bought a big box of hard candies for 49 cents. And then she guided Joe through the crowd on the street until they came to the dime store. Near the 10-cent store, they passed a moving picture theater. Joe said he wanted to go in and see the movies. Arcee said, "Oh, no, child. This ain't Baltimore where they have shows for color too. In these here small towns, they don't let color folks in. We can't go in there." "Oh," said little Joe. In the 10-cent store, there was an awful crowd. Arcee told Joe to stand outside and wait for her. Keeping hold of him in the crowded store would be a job. Besides, she didn't want him to see what toys she was buying. They were to be a surprise from Santa Claus tomorrow. Little Joe stood outside the 10-cent store in the light and the snow and people passing. Gee, Christmas was pretty. All tinsel and stars and cotton, and Santa Claus are coming from somewhere, dropping things into stockings, and all the people in the streets were carrying things, and the kids looked happy. But Joe soon got tired of standing and thinking and waiting in front of the 10-cent store. There were so many things to look at in the other windows. He moved along up the block a little, and then a little more, walking and looking. In fact, he moved until he came to the picture show. In the lobby of the moving picture show, behind the plate glass doors, it was all warm and glowing and awful pretty. Joe stood looking in, and as he looked, his eyes began to make out, in there blazing beneath holly and colored streamers and the electric stars of the lobby, a marvelous Christmas tree. A group of children and grown-ups, white, of course, were standing around a big man in red beside the tree. Or was it a man? Little Joe's eyes opened wide. No, it wasn't a man at all. It was Santa Claus! Little Joe pushed open one of the glass doors and ran into the lobby of the white moving picture show. Little Joe went right through the crowd and up to where he could get a good look at Santa Claus. And Santa Claus was giving away gifts. Little presents for children, little boxes of animal crackers and sticky candy canes. And behind him on the tree was a big sign, which little Joe didn't know how to read. It said to all those who understood, "Merry Christmas from Santa Claus to our young patrons." Around the lobby, other signs said, "When you come out of the show, stop with your children and see our Santa Claus." And another announced, "Gym Theater makes its customer happy. See our Santa." And there was Santa Claus in a red suit and a white beard, all sprinkled with tinsel now. Around him were rattles and drums and rocking horses, which he was not giving away, but the signs on them said, could little Joe have read, that they would be presented from stage on Christmas Day to the holders of lucky numbers. Tonight, Santa Claus was only giving away candy and sticky candy canes and animal crackers to the kids. Joe would have terribly liked the sticky candy cane. He came a little closer to Santa. He was right in front of the crowd, and then Santa Claus saw Joe. Why is it that lots of white people always grin when they see a Negro child? Santa Claus grinned. Everybody else grinned too, looking at little black Joe, who had no business in the lobby of a white theater. Then Santa Claus stooped down and slyly picked up one of his lucky number rattles, a great big loud 10-pin rattle like they used in cabarets, and he shook it fiercely right at Joe. That was funny. The white people laughed, kids and all, but little Joe didn't laugh. He was scared. To To the shaking of a big rattle, he turned and fled out of the warm lobby of the theater, out into the street where the snow was and the people. Frightened by laughter, he began to cry. He went looking for his mama. In his heart, he never thought Santa Claus shook rattles at children like that and then laughed. In the crowd on the street, he went the wrong way. He couldn't find the 10-cent store or his mother. There were too many people, all white people, moving like white shadows in the snow, a whirl of white people. It seemed to Joe an awful long time till he suddenly saw Arcee, dark and worried looking, cut across the sidewalk through the passing crowd and grab him. Although her arms were full of packages, she still managed with one free hand to shake him until his teeth rattled. "Why didn't you stand there where I left you?" Arcee demanded loudly. "Tired as I am, I gotta run all over the streets in the night looking for you? I'm a great mind to wear you out." When little Joe got his breath back on the way home, he told his mama he had been to the moving picture show. "But Santa didn't give me nothing," Joe said tearfully. "He made a big noise at me and I runned out." "Serves you right," said Arcee, trudging through the snow. "You had no business in there. I told you to stay where I left you." "But I see Santa Claus in there," little Joe said, "so I went in." "That wasn't no Santa Claus," Arcee explained. "If it was, he wouldn't have treated you like that. That's a theater for white folks. I told you once, and he's just an old white man." "Oh," said little Joe.